Hello and welcome everyone to season 2 of Soul and Science, where psychology meets ancient wisdom. Our theme this month for season 2 is From Victim to Victor, the podcast where we explore the transformative journey of healing and personal empowerment. Through inspiring stories, insights, and practical tools, we'll guide you from a place of victimhood to victory, from unconscious patterns to conscious, empowered living. Whether you're navigating trauma, striving for personal growth, or simply looking for a deeper understanding of how to reclaim your power, this will give you an insight and a few tools to help you on that journey. Join me, Nyana, a psychotherapist, and Ardaas ji, a spiritual teacher, as we dive deeper into the connection of mind, body, soul, and its incredible ability to heal and rise and elevate. While this may not be a therapy session, and we invite you to seek professional advice where needed, this may allow you to get closer to understanding where you have been stuck in the past and how you can be reborn to be victorious. Hello and welcome everyone to Soul and Science, our podcast where psychology meets ancient wisdom. Uh, my name is Nyana, and I am, as always, with the wonderful Ardaas ji, who takes us through the brilliance of the energy of ancient wisdom. And today, in episode 3 of our second season, we will be talking about the inner child, about healing the wounds of the inner child and how they show up in our life, how they show up in our body, and its journey to healing really the victim to becoming a victor. So, with that, I'm going to actually begin today with welcoming a question to Ardaas ji on how ancient wisdom looks at the inner child, and then I'll give a definition from what psychology says is the inner child. And I know we have different definitions, and that's the beauty of it.
Well, hello everyone, and hello Nyana. Thank you for this introduction. Every day you are more full of praises. uh, okay, the inner child. There is quite a number of things from the perspective of yoga regarding the inner child. I haven't really thought about what would I like to say about it, so I'm just going to improvise. I would say first of all that we all go through developmental stages in life, and from babies to infants and children and young adults and into maturity, and those developments have a number of characteristics. Some of them are psychological characteristics, but not just that. Yeah, there is a number of values that change, a number of reference. Yeah, what do you use as a reference to understand what you have to do in the world? Like, for example, when you're very, very young, you look for your mommy to understand what has to be done. Then you pay attention to your dad, and then to the people around you. So there's different stages, and clearly maturity within us as humans. Yeah? And I'm sure from a cognitive perspective and from a brain development perspective, there is very clear lines as well that we cross through. And yet we see how often we see an adult, which is a 35, a 40-year-old who behaves like a child, or which is quite disturbing, really. To see a full-grown man or woman having a tantrum. It's really disturbing, and yet it happens quite often, more often than we imagine, maybe.
Yep.
And so, why is this happening? And I think the part of it is because even though there is a natural progression and growth within a person, we sometimes get stuck.
Mm.
And some issues get stuck very early on. And so if you have an issue that it has been stuck from childhood, then it will manifest in adulthood. Even though the body is the body of an adult, they may think and they may speak like an adult, and yet there is some unresolved issue within the deeper layers of the subconscious, which is going to be, when the right trigger happens, then that's going to come out,
Mm.
and it will be and we will behave like children. We will get angry, we will react, we will respond in a nasty way, we will be vengeful, we will be angry in a unreasonable way. There will be some disproportionate reaction to anything that happens. And where is all this coming? Well, all this is coming from something unresolved in the subconscious, and sometimes from very early on from the childhood. Now, when that thing that has been unresolved, it because we are very adaptive, like we adapt a lot, yeah, like humans, we tend to adapt to survive. What this means is that if something happens when we are children and we need to survive that situation, we will adapt by creating some personality and some response that is going to be good for the moment when you are a child, and you need to do that. That means also you're going to suppress parts of you because you have to survive in that context, and it's okay. But as you become an adult and you look back and you realize that those parts that you suppressed were actually part of you or your essence, and the others that you were emphasizing to survive, they are not needed anymore. So part of becoming an adult would include um, getting rid of those extra components of your personality which were built just to survive, and they are not necessary, and actually they are unhealthy for regular communications. Like what I was just saying, something happens, it triggers me, and then I just respond back at you with an angry word. Well, why do you do that, right? So we can learn to control that aspect of ourselves. Maybe control is not the right the right word. And also notice those aspects of our personality that were repressed because of that survival thing that we had to do as a child. And that is like the baby that has to be held. That is like the baby that has to be loved and cared for. And if you felt it wasn't safe for you when you were little, then those parts of you are now repressed or suppressed, and therefore we still need to find an expression for them. And so there is a part of our childhood that we need to hug and love, and there's other behaviors of the child, like the tantrum kind of thing, that have to be eliminated, yeah, from us as adults. So this is a little bit like an overview, basic overview of the relationship to the inner child. Tell me, how does it contrast to the psychological perspective?
Yeah, so I'm going to say that the inner child is, and I'm going to introduce this new thing of the shadow as well, because I know that a lot of psychology talks about the shadow and the inner child, and many people don't kind of understand the difference between the two. So I thought I'd bring them both in and tell us the difference around it. So the inner child is essentially the aspect of the unconscious and represents the unhealed wounds from childhood. And it basically focuses on repressed wounds, frustrated needs, any kind of early childhood trauma that may have not been processed. And that sort of becomes the inner child wound that impacts, which may get triggered and that may show up, very similar to what you said. While the shadow is a broader range of aspects of our personality, which are both positive and negative, which are hidden from the conscious awareness, and yet they are undesirable, and so we want to hide it from people. So they're essentially what we see as the ideal. The ego sees an ideal. I don't fit into that ideal, so I basically need to hide that, and I need to repress that. It could be suppressed anger, or it could be, something like that. Like you said, vengeful or revenge, but I don't even realize that about me. Right? But it's become a part of my personality, which could be because of early wounds, because I felt there was injustice, and, I didn't feel that I was getting justice. So I take justice in my own hands, and yet I don't see it as a sort of, I see it as an undesirable part of me, and so I try to suppress it. And so they're sort of different. One is almost like I accept it, inner child, let me hug it and heal it. And then there is another part where we feel that it's undesirable, I need to hide it. And it brings about a certain amount of shame for people that those are parts of the personality. But in psychology, they're all welcome. And we need to integrate both parts into the ego to develop a sense of wholeness. It still believes that it is shadow work that brings light to those part of ourselves which we unknowingly are rejecting into the light and becoming aware of it so that they don't show up suddenly. We become aware of it and that we have some semblance of control over that behavior. And like you said, not control, but some sense of mastery over that behavior, wherein we can make that choice of whether I want to do this behavior in this moment or am I being led by some unconscious belief that is held by this shadow part that I then, is impacting this wholeness that is otherwise my true self. And the inner child also is aspects of ourselves that were childlike, our innocence, our, ability to be playful, which may get taken away if we've had really chronic childhoods, or our worthiness of love and deservingness and things like that, that may get, affected. And then we are facing the impact of those in our adult life, in our relationships, in our jobs, in the way we address the world. It sort of taints the perspective completely, and we don't understand why. And these actually give birth to our belief systems. And only then, if I think the world is cruel, then I'm always going to live afraid. But I don't know why I'm afraid. But then we go back
Right.
into, the inner child and we do the work and we answer, okay, fine. So you believe that the world is cruel. You're bound to not want to go out, interact with people, avoid, and all of that. And so, whereas the shadow may be another aspect that it's also coming, there is suppressed anger over there because the world has treated me in a certain way. And so then I may become a bully and when, or something like that during those times, but I'm not aware of it. It just shows up as rage or anger. And then I kind of tell, I don't get angry. I'm not an angry person.
Yeah.
We completely deny the presence of that. And sometimes we're doing behaviors where we don't understand that it's being driven by the unconscious shadow. So that's really how psychology sees it. And says that everything needs to be sort of brought to life and healed to get some semblance of integration into wholeness. That all paths are welcome, and the more aware we are, the more we're able to navigate that into our experience of life.
Right. Good. Wow, there's so much in there. Let me unpack a few things.
Mm-hmm.
On one side, if we want to initiate this journey of healing, whatever trauma we have to look at these basic needs that are hiding in the shadow and make sure that we have um, that we meet those basic needs, basic healthy needs that are natural for ourselves, and then we, for some reason, we have either not fulfilled them or even suppressed them or felt even wrong about them. Yeah, for whatever reason, when we are little and we are told that whatever need is wrong, is evil, is shameful, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't think about that, and then we create a personality around that, and that's how we have this need. We think is wrong, so there's something wrong with me, so I'm wrong because I'm having this need, and then that could be a reason for that anger that you were talking about, no?
Absolutely.
And also, like, I have this need, nobody satisfies it, and then I'm angry at the world because nobody is satisfying that basic need of myself. So I think today is a good day to talk about needs and going depth with the concept of needs, because also, if that's the thing, if you now as an adult have never explored what are the basic needs that an adult has, which are actually remarkably similar to a child.
Mm,
And I hope we can today find this relationship between baby's needs and an adult. And if you haven't met those needs, then how are you first, how are you reacting in the world? How are you living in the world with all those unresolved issues? But also, you don't feel safe,
Mm.
because the feeling of safety and needs is very much connected to the lower chakras. In yoga, we understand is the first chakra is safety, and the second chakra is a lot of our relationship to needs, but actually the first three chakras are relationship to needs up until the navel. So the first one, the first chakra is considered the need to survive. The second one is need for reproduction and continuation and survival of the species or survival of your family, and that's the sexuality. And then there's the third chakra, that's food. So that's survival through actual food. So the first one is more survival in front of a lion, like we were talking last week on how our reaction to stress is. Second one is more about unmet needs and especially sexuality. And the third one is about food. So this is like a very, very animal level, let's say. It's not very human, it's just encoded in us like animals that we have these basic needs. And if there is something missing or lacking or repressed, or we feel ashamed about those basic needs from those chakras, that's going to manifest in that area.
So
So
you
when we are
said
going to
basic needs are for security and survival, that's our root, and then there's sexuality, which is our sacred, and then there is the solar plexus.
sexuality would be second chakra, and the third chakra is food, is digestion, and not only what you receive and when you eat, but you're also eating the world. So like going into the world and progressing and moving and action and being able to want to pursue a career and move on towards that career, your projects. So that's all a lot of action. That's from the navel.
Right. So wouldn't that in some ways be an expression of yourself in the world, your authenticity, your expression of who you are in this world? Would
Yes,
that
that would
be,
also come.
yeah.
That expression could come from the navel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always say express through your heart, but not from your heart. So you express from the navel through your heart. So the navel is going to empower whatever is in the heart. The heart it's a beautiful space. If you heal it and properly care for it, there is all this love and kindness and empathy and beautiful, blessed feelings. And if you have a strong navel, you're going to empower those feelings.
Mhm.
And so where I was going with all this thing about the chakras is that when you talk about the shadow, from the perspective of yoga, a lot of the shadow is in relationship to the lower three chakras.
Mhm.
So below the diaphragm. That's why these last two sessions we've been working with the breath. Yeah, I was giving some tips with the breath because the breath, it moves the diaphragm. So we are actually working to contact what is below the diaphragm. So in a way, we were preparing to contact what is in the shadow, in a
Right.
way.
That's beautiful. That's so beautifully linked, Ardaas ji. Please go ahead.
And because it's linked, working through the body and working through why do we do these physical postures, these asanas? Because when you do an asana and you are putting pressure in a particular area or you are charging energy in one of these chakras, you're actually also working on the subconscious. You're also working on the shadow, and you are contacting your inner child, even if you don't know it. Yeah, you may just think you're doing an asana, but actually you are having a direct access to the subconscious because of the subconscious living in your body. So
Mm.
through working through your body, you are accessing these levels of the subconscious, and you can heal. You can be, there's experiences you may have experienced this, that somebody doing yoga and suddenly they have this memory and they start crying and they don't know why they are crying, or sometimes it comes with a memory, sometimes it doesn't. Just the emotion just comes. So this cellular memory that was encoding some particular trauma can be released through just working through the body. And if we are talking specifically about the shadow and the child, then we should be talking about the lower three chakras.
And that's very interesting because now in psychology, a lot of the work is around somatic, right? Which is to go into the body and say, where is the pain? What do you notice in the body? What is the emotion? And then the memory of a certain past trauma shows up. And then, everybody's like, oh, but how is it in the body? And to recognize that the trauma is stored in the body, in our
Right,
cells, our organs,
right,
and fascia. And a lot of people say, yeah, it's in my stomach.
right. Right. But sometimes they say stomach, but they point to the belly, lower abdomen.
Yes, it is usually the lower abdomen that they say that, and it's usually sadness and fear is in the heart. And they're very specific spaces that you see these emotions show up, and where we are carrying these emotions, which is usually in the lower chakras. And then somehow from heart, it naturally goes to the lower belly in the somatic work that we do. And then we're spending a lot of time in that area, which is blocked because if psychology looks at basic needs, the first is the basic need for survival, which is safety. But there's emotional safety and physical safety, mental safety and physiological safety of the child. And then there is, of course, the stability of a home environment, the presence of a primary caregiver. And then there is the physiological safety, which is food, clothing, shelter, nutrition. And today we're talking a lot more about emotional safety than we've ever, and the autonomy of a child to express will, to express and have their own sense of this is me, I exist in this world, right? And so many times that's the core need today, along with safety, that's really getting suppressed. Because if I'm not able to express my autonomy that I exist in this world, which I'm assuming, does that come at the nabi? In
Your autonomy in the world
mhm,
to express. The expression would come from the navel.
yeah.
The survival would be the first chakra, and then emotions would be the second chakra.
Right. Yeah. So, to for the child to say I exist, and then we are imposing societal norms to say, no, you can't be that way, and you can't express that way, and you cannot have this need. Or when children touch themselves as a natural form of exploration, that's bad, that's shameful. And we keep sort of um, obviously with good intention, not with the intention of ever hurting the child knowingly, but unconsciously taking away that aspect of the needs being met. There are frustrated needs, as we call it, which keep showing back, and that gives excruciating pain to the child growing up, because now I'm not developing a healthy sense of self.
Right.
Um, my sense of I'm cared for, I am safe, I will survive. My physical needs are met, my emotional needs are met, my needs of feeling worthy and existing are met. And also then affects, if these are not met, then they affect brain development as well in the long term. And which is the growth of the frontal lobe that we know, which I know that in yoga we work with a lot, where we see that that's where the emotional pain and the trigger arises when we become adults, with this poor sense of I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve. And that becomes the narrative of the individual who is suffering.
Right. So how about if we go a little bit more in detail of those needs and
Mm.
name them?
Yeah.
Because you were starting to go into them, but I think it would serve us if we could name them by name. Yeah, you were going into the body and emotions, and there's a little exercise that I like to do to explore basic needs, which
Mhm.
is to look at a baby.
Mm.
And I'm a father. I have two little ones, two girls. They're already old now, but they were babies once. And I did this exercise for the first time with them. Just watching them and just paying attention. What do they really need? Really, really need. And I found there is basically five things. And,
Mm.
and I think it's very, very revealing, because these five things talk about these five levels in us, which these very basic needs will manifest as adults as well. So let's explore these five needs. For a baby, first thing, the baby needs to be comfortable. And maybe it's not necessarily in this order, but the five are necessary, yeah? And it needs to be comfortable means that you have to make sure that the temperature is right, that the nappy is not dirty, that they are like there's no wrinkles in the clothes. So sometimes a wrinkle could bother them. So there is things about the body that is like there's something uncomfortable and I don't like it, and that's a source for distress. And then they start crying, and you're like, okay, let's figure out first, check the nappy. Second, like there is this little list that we parents do, right? So comfort, and this comfort is linked to the physical body. The body
Mm,
should be comfortable. So that's one thing. A second thing is it needs to be fed. It needs food every now and then. Yeah, every certain amount of time, hours, whatever, he needs to eat. And that's a way to replenish his energy. So
mm,
his energy levels are going down. He needs food to replenish them. So he tops up and then go down again. So needing to be fed is something that I will associate, even though it's the physical body, and the discomfort will manifest in the body, like I'm feeling hungry, but what it needs is to feel the energy topping up. So feeding, topping up energy. Another thing that babies love is to play and to be
mm.
entertained, right? And they want to these lightly, bright colors. Yeah, they love things with bright colors that you show them here, show them, and they are paying attention, and they love to be playing with you, and they love to be entertained. And this is a need to for their mind to explore things, explore new things, and try to grasp what is out there, also with their hands, but even before they can grasp things, just it's a way for the mind to acquire knowledge and to start learning about the world. And that's what the mind likes. It likes to play. Yeah. So being playful and entertained, that's another need for the baby. If you don't give the baby toys, he's gonna get bored very quickly and he's gonna cry as well, even if he's well fed.
Mm,
Next one, so that's the mind. Yeah, we have the body, the energy, and the mind. The next one is the body. The baby needs to be held
mm.
in being in the arms, and preferably skin to skin contact. So, and of course, the very very first person that the baby needs is the mother.
Yeah.
So, actually, when the mother is feeding the baby, if it's not bottle, if it's not a bottle, if it's giving breast, that's already satisfying two of the needs, because it's one is feeding, that's food,
Mm,
but also the baby is feeling so close to the mother and the contact with the skin, and that's an opportunity to feel loved.
mm,
So now we are talking about the heart. Yeah,
mm.
this is a need for the heart, and you will see I'm putting it in the fourth place because this is the fourth chakra. So you may see why I'm going through this in this order,
Yeah.
because it's related also to the chakras in a way. But that's the heart to heart contact, and I believe you may know this more better than me, but I believe there was some study with premature children who were in the hospital, and they were keeping them in these isolation
Incubate.
places,
Mm,
incubators. Thank you. And for a group of them, they weren't doing anything; they were just feeding them and so on. And another group, every an hour or something like that, some nurse was actually taking them and putting them on the heart, and then the improvement of their conditions and the amount of time that it took for them to be ready to come out of the incubator was so much quicker, and they were much healthier as well for those who had heart-to-heart contact. Is that correct?
yes, absolutely. I think in the US, there are actually programs where you can volunteer to be a warm body, as they call it.
Oh my, that's
Uh,
so
I
lovely.
I would leave everything and do that job, I
Oh,
promise.
that's so lovely. What's your job? I'm a hugger.
Yeah, can you imagine? I hug little babies. That would just be my perfect job.
Oh my God, I hug babies. That's lovely. And so that's the fourth basic need, and the fifth is quite obvious: needs to sleep. It needs
Mm,
to go back to rest. And when we sleep, we say in yoga that it's an opportunity for our subtle body to reconnect with the spirit. It's like having a little spiritual journey, yeah, to let ourselves recede to the nothingness before we were in this planet, right? Go back to that nothingness and connect to the universe through that. So it's like a very spiritual moment of to connect to the source and to connect to the infinite. Yeah, going back to the infinite. And sleep is very necessary, very need, a strong need for babies. They sleep like 15 hours a day or so, right? So That's the five things, and the last one I would say is a spiritual need. Yeah, it's a need to connect back to the spiritual. So we have needs of the body, need to fill my energy, need to play and be entertained, and feed the mind as well, not just feed the body, right? Feed the mind, and need to be held, which is about the heart,
Mm,
and also a spiritual need. Now, these five needs, if we think about it, they are there all our lives.
mm,
They may change slightly over the period of time, and some of them may be less important than others. For example, an older person, they don't worry so much about the body. If there
mm,
is some ache and pain over here, over there, you are used to it. You are older. The knee is squeaking a little bit. That's fine. It comes with age. You are not like a baby, that little squeak, my knee, it's not like that. So the need for the body is not so much. Even food, they don't need to eat so much. But
mhm,
how about the heart and how about the spirit? The higher you go, in the chakras and the higher you go in life, it's quite correlated. And
okay.
hopefully also in terms of development. So the baby will pay more attention to the first chakras, and as we grow older, we are more towards the higher chakras. And if there is some issue in the lower ones, that's when we have these issues with the shadow and the unmet needs and all those things. But those five things are fundamental. Now that's already interesting. We could stop here, but let me take it one more step. Just
Mhm,
just just one more detail. We are not going to go into this in depth, but just a little clue, and I find it very useful, which is uh, last season we did relationships,
yeah.
but we didn't really do an episode for actually couples to talk about couples. And this is something that I find very, very useful, which is look, these five needs of the baby. If we took a couple and we imagine that the couple is a person, that person also has a progress through life. So there is a moment when the couple is in gestation period, yeah, when it's the pregnancy, yeah. There's a moment when the couple is born. There is a moment when the couple is very, very young and still getting to know each other. It's kind of like baby. And there is a moment when the couple is already like children who play. And then there's an adolescent period of the couple. And then there's a mature period of the couple. And if we take the couple like a baby, we could observe that the couple has the very same five needs that a baby has.
Mm,
So when we are in a relationship with somebody, we could also consider how are we, how are the needs of our bodies in this relationship being met? How are the needs of our energy? How is the energy flowing between the two of us? And how is the mind? Is my mind being engaged? Are we having good conversations that we can stimulate each other's intellect and we can talk and we can, be together on that level as well? How about the heart? Do we
mhm,
have intimate heart to heart connection? And how about the spirit? Are we together aligned with something spiritual? And these five levels are also going to manifest and they're also going to grow towards through the edges. But I think it's interesting that nowadays when we have an argument with somebody that we spend 2 years with that person, which seems like a lot
mm,
nowadays, but 2 years is nothing, it's a baby. And you spend 2 years with that person and you have an argument, that's like the baby pooing in the nappy,
mm,
right? And when a baby poos in the nappy, we parents who love the baby, we just change the nappy happily, and we're like, oh, the baby, oh, look at the poo in the baby in the baby's nappy. Let's change that nappy. Are you happy now? Yeah, and then nappy happy, happy nappy. I don't know. You play with the baby, and it's something nasty that happened. When in a couple there is some issue, and then we poo on each other in a way, then it becomes a big trauma. And we make it huge and big. And it was a little detail, but it becomes huge. And rather than just changing the nappy in the relationship and move on to the other needs and hug each other, and we make it big. And that's, I think, expecting too much of something that is just being born. So anyway, it's just a little guideline to take this as a philosophical exercise to explore what are the needs of a baby, what are the needs of adults, and even the needs in relationships. Now I spoke a lot, so over to you.
yeah, I think it's interesting you say that to take that into the trajectory of the couple, but the first most important being the safety, right? And that if I'm safe and I'm comfortable, then I maybe can clean the poo. But if I'm not, or then if I've come with these unmet needs um, from beforehand, then two unmet needs are meeting. And we are fighting over those unmet needs.
Yeah.
And that's what's causing all this inability to clean up and move towards the center, because we're still operating from that basic unmet need with the belief that that person is going to meet my need, which is fair in the child. The child does not have the capacity to meet its own needs, and that's really important. That we as parents, I find interesting to recognize that the child is born with the belief and the trust that my needs are going to be met.
Right.
That when I cry, the cry is a sign to say, look at me, I need something. I don't have the language to tell you that. And so that basic belief that my need will be met, that when I cry, I will be held. So back in the day, for example, if a child cried, you're not supposed to pick them up because I think it was baby training or sleep training
Yeah.
or sing training, right?
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
completely went away from the natural state of the needs of the child. And so we see a lot more of that frustrated needs of safety, being held, being attuned to, which is the things that we talk about in from a psychological perspective, that the baby's born with that belief and that trust.
Let me just say something there, because the problem is that there is some false evidence here. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have a child and the child is crying because you put him in bed, and then you say, well, okay, you hear about this concept. No, it's just you have to ignore it, the baby. Yeah, he will stop crying. The false evidence is that the baby stops crying. And then you think, you see, the baby was fine. He didn't really need me, right? And not so much as a baby, maybe more even as children, right?
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 year old, and the child wants to be with you, and he needs to see you, he needs your proximity, and then you are like, no, no, you have your own bed, you have your own space, and you have to sleep by yourself, and you cannot cry throughout the whole night, and I will not come to you. Now, if you do this change, this radical change, I'm just going to stop putting the child in his own bed, and he has to figure out how to sleep. Well, he does. He eventually stops crying. He eventually falls asleep, and for 2 or 3 nights he will cry, trying to get your attention. But if you don't give it, he will stop giving it. Now that doesn't mean, oh, the child is successfully trained. No, that means that the child trained and he learned something. He learned he cannot depend on you to satisfy that need from to be hugged, for example. And that, whatever learning he gets from that, a lot of it is like losing his trust in you, and you will not know the consequence of this right then, but you will later on, maybe even years on, and especially when maybe many years later as an adolescent, you will have a teen who cares nothing about what you say. You may say something, he doesn't care, he goes away, he doesn't talk, he doesn't respond, and you're like, hey, come on. And then he's doing something which is you feel is risky, and you're trying to say, but trust me, that's not good for you. How could I trust you? And there is something in the underneath that you didn't even put him to sleep, right? Or he needed a hug, you didn't give a hug, and now he's gonna, in a way, pay you back. Then you have a difficult teenage years, but you don't realize that it comes from much earlier. So yeah, that's an important thing, because there is the false evidence that if I don't do this for the baby or for the child, he stops crying, but that doesn't mean everything is right.
Absolutely. And I think that's the birth of the unmet needs, right? That my trust is that I am going to be safe. That you're not going to be a source of my danger or fear. You're here to protect me.
Yeah.
But that's the most important, that I'm protected. Um, but what when the parent is the source of fear,
Yeah, that's even worse. Yeah.
right? The second is that I will be, sort of be held when I need to be held, and when I'm crying, that there'll be attunement. And that's how attachment, trust, all of these fundamental aspects of I am worthy I am deserving, I am loved, I'm taken care of. That foundation of the root chakra of stability, security, and safety is the foundation of the child, of the infant, who then goes on to be becoming adult. And if that is not responded to, if the with the appropriate response, that fundamentally affects my place in this world, my sense of safety, security, my sense of worthiness, my sense of belongingness, my sense of feeling helpless, hopeless, and worthless becomes then, if I scream, 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 and then eventually I stop, I think I've done a great job. I just realize I need to go into shutdown. Nobody's listening to me. Nobody's taking care of me. My needs are not met. And that's highly threatening. And then we grow up with all of these needs being met, because the third thing then, like you said, comes to, the fourth thing that we come to is the heart. Then I'm not loved. And that is very, very threatening for a child, because their whole thing of being cute and cooing and, sort of getting crying and getting their parents' attention is to say, I exist, give me love.
Yeah, and as we are going into all this, then I always see at the other side of the coin as well, and this is so hard. This is probably one of the hardest things as a parent. Then okay, so let's say we don't want to do that, right? We want to give the support and satisfy the needs and hug them and take care of them, make sure that they go to sleep and they feel cared. But then you don't want to be breastfeeding a child until they are 8 years old, right? You don't want to be sleeping with them until they are 15. I've heard of people who sleep with their mom until they are 15 and even older. So I mean, also the couple, the couple has to exist, and if there's a baby in the middle or a child in the middle, it's difficult for the couple to be together. So where is the line, and where can we cross it? And that's extremely hard as a parent, yeah, because okay, I'm not just going to put them in their own room to sleep, but then when is that going to happen, and how is that going to happen? To me, one little tip that helps me a lot is don't do anything for the child that the child cannot do by himself or herself. So if the child can eat by himself, let the child take the spoon, even if it's a little bit messy. If the child can, tie his own shoes, take the time to allow the child to tie his own shoes. Even if it takes 3 minutes and you are already late because there's traffic and whatever, then you are allowing the child to be expressing what he can do. And most children want to show that they can do. But if we don't want the mess and we just keep spoon feeding them, eventually the child doesn't want to eat by himself, and they wants you to keep spoon feeding them, and it becomes life. Like you expect life to be spoon feeding you and please entertain me, and you are inactive in your life and passive, and you don't go for goals, you don't move on, no? So these little details like spoon feeding would become a pattern that later on manifests. So there's not just the need for food, but there's also the need to grow and learn and independently be able to feed myself. So that's also the other side of the coin.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's where um, agency, autonomy that children exercise from the very beginning. And
Yeah.
like you said, because it's a big part of the Asian culture to be spoon feeding till I don't know till how long, right?
Yeah.
And it's considered love. And we're not recognizing that we're taking away the child's ability to be autonomous. And then when they reach 18, they don't know how to serve themselves food. Of course, they know how to eat themselves, but then they are not able to make,
Yeah.
or they aren't able to be autonomous, or they're not able to find their sense of, Mom, you tell me what to do. But you're legally of age to be voting.
Yeah. Imagine.
Imagine, but I'm not able to decide, should I go out today? What do you think I should do? And then somebody else tells you what to do, and that's considered love, and that's considered respect, and that considers that I've been a good, you know,
But that started from a helicopter parent who didn't allow the child to do anything by himself and told him, no, no, don't do that. No, no, don't do that. No, don't play with this. No, don't play. And the child, okay, she will tell me when I can. No.
absolutely.
So
And what
where is the line? That's so hard.
but there's a difference bit. I mean, I know the work of Piaget and all talk about the fact that children learn by exploring the environment through play. And that if they don't fall and they don't stand up, they don't know they can do that.
Right.
But it's the fear of the parent that is being projected that isn't allowing the child to do that. So, where is the line is as simple as going by the there's so much around the developmental needs of a child, right? That they are meant to, in the first few years, explore their environment. And the only thing that you need to do as a parent is when they fall and they cry and they come to you for a hug, you are there as a hug and you soothe them, allow them to go back and play again. That
Which
every
is different, which is different from running towards them when they fell in the ground to try to hug them. Uh, Let them fall, okay? But you immediately, sometimes you see the parent, the child fell. Oh my God, what happened? Is he made of glass or something? Just
or I told
wait.
you so. I told
Yeah,
you not to run. You were bound to fall. Now look, you
yeah.
fall. There goes.
Yeah,
Come
you're
on.
gonna fall. You're gonna fall. You know, these kind of phrases which become like mantras, right? You're
Yeah,
going to fall.
yeah. And so it's really, I mean, it's very clear there's that your job is to let the child know that you're there. Sometimes they won't even come running to you for a hug. They'll look up, they'll pat themselves, or they'll look behind if you're still there, what your response is. If your
Right.
response is still, I'm here if you need
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
go ahead and play. If you want to explore, if you want to come back, I'm here. Then the child gets the security and the safety to go on to explore the world with his autonomy, with his expression, with this knowing that when I come for self soothing, that's really what it is. When I come to be soothed and held with that connection and attachment, that the individual who happens to be my mother or father is there to meet that need. And it's
That
basic.
that's 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 the key, isn't it? Well, so okay, so that's great, but that's for learning parenting. No, let's now take it back to the trauma and the
Yeah.
therapy
So what
session. So
happens when I
what
don't get
happens?
that need met?
Correct, correct. What do
Right?
we do then?
What do? I realize I can't go to my parents. They're going to yell and scream at me. I should not explore the world. I should sit at home. It's too scary to go out. What if I fall? I'm always making a mistake. I will get into trouble. God forbid if it's a punishing environment and I get punished. And all of these start becoming um, unmet needs for safety, survival, authenticity, expression, exploration, play, all the things that you said, the five needs, they all start to get unmet. And then I'm left with this big bag of unmet needs that the child in me, while I may grow biologically and physically, is continuing to carry around with the hope that somebody will meet them. And every
Good.
time there is a perception of rejection of meeting those needs, it's excruciating.
And just to point out that you may find somebody who meets those needs, but actually some of these needs you should have learned the individuality and the capacity to, for example, feed yourself. It's possible that you find somebody who will spoon feed you even as an adult, not literally, but
Yeah.
and but that's going to be like a codependent relationship because the other person is also going to expect that you satisfy some of their needs in a particular way. And as soon as it works to get a couple together, not very healthy expression of the couple, but they are get together. But as soon as one gets a little bit out of that place and maybe they grow in any direction, in a healthy direction with relationship to their needs, and they don't want the other one to do this job anymore, the other one is going to feel what's the problem, and that's going to put tension in the couple. So let's say now we are adults and we look back and we recognize that that pattern you just mentioned happened to us. So
Mm.
when we were little, one of these five levels of of needs were unmet, and I'm carrying that baggage, and it has manifested as some personality disorder or something. What do we do then, Nyana? What
Let
can
me
we do?
just let me just bridge this. Why does it become a personality? Right? Because when
Good.
the unmet need is present, it also affects my sense of self. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. There's something wrong with me. So then I start developing coping mechanisms to work with that pain and fear and anxiety that I'm not like other people. I'm not loved. And then I have to do things to become lovable and better and all of those sort of things. And it, those coping strategies become our personality. And some of these may become ritualistic behaviors, or they may become behaviors that say, I don't care about anybody, and may come across as traits of certain. And that's how personality develops. Your coping then becomes your personality. And then they are somewhat distorted and unhealthy because they're trying to cover up for unmet needs which are unhealthy in the first place. And
Right.
therefore, the response to that should actually be something healthy, which is being held. But instead of being held, I may turn around and say, I don't need people. I will avoid relationships. Then I have become an avoidant and or I just become shut down with emotions. I start emotionally numbing. And then I find that, there are other forms of conditions that's showing up, physical and mental. So that's what really happens. I'm just trying to bridge the gap of, okay, now coming to these adults who have these expressions of some form of a disturbance in our personality development because of those unmet needs, and I'm completely unaware that it comes from those, right? And what do we do? So ideally, if you're living in what we would understand is that you're getting into issues in your interpersonal relationships, issues in the job, or you're very good in a job, but you can't hold a relationship. So your life would not actually have too much of balance in it because everything is essentially a coping strategy for something from childhood that does not really show up. Or then you start looking at the partner as a primary caregiver. So play daddy for me or become my mummy. It's something
Right.
that we see a lot where one there becomes a parent-child dynamic in a relationship, right? And these
Right.
are all signs that something is not healthy. Or emotional dysregulation, right? Something that you say can really trigger a very massive response in me, which may not be, but I'm just, not able to hold the statement that you have given me, and I'm, crumbling under that. So yeah,
So
that's where
disproportionate reaction I was saying before. That's a
disproportionately.
good sign that there is something there to work out.
Absolutely. And these are all linked to those unmet needs and essentially our sense of self and our safety in the world. And that's what we then do with therapy in the therapeutic space, is to try to unravel what this emotional wound is. What is it connected to? What need is it that hasn't been met? Is it your need for safety? Is it a need for survival? Is it a need for um, like validation that your needs are important and valid, or the need for somebody to say, I've emotionally numbed, it's safe to feel again. That's something that I'm noticing a lot with the newer generation, that a lot of the distraction with cell phones is to a way to emotionally numb. And that's become a big part of the survival mechanism that's leading to addictions and other aspects of behaviors that have become secondary coping mechanisms. Personality being primary, or any form of external use of substances, etc., being a secondary paradigm to healing emotional wounds. So we
So
actually have.
let me just make a pause there because I think this you mentioned something very important. I don't want it to get lost as well. If as we are reflecting upon our life and upon our current state and figuring out if I'm in a healthy place, and then I go level by level, physical, emotional, energetic, and all that thing. Watch out if you say, well, okay, need to be held. I'm fine. My heart is fine. We watch out that it's fine really and it's not being numbed. Because if you're in that numb state that you just mentioned, it's like, oh no, I'm fine with this, but actually I'm not feeling anything. This is like numb. So I don't notice the pain that is there because I've numbed the region or the level, let's say.
Absolutely. And that's become a very, and I want to reiterate how what a big coping mechanism it's become with the current generation. of young adults, and it comes back from probably not being held. And so I didn't know how to process my pain as a child. So I still don't know how to process my pain. So imagine if, like you said, if we were a couple and we were coming with these wounds, we would constantly be fighting. We wouldn't really be listening. We wouldn't be dialoguing. We wouldn't be, everything would be a fight. Everything might seem like an attack. Everything might seem like, oh, perceived rejection, or there might be a perception of abandonment. So there isn't a sense of safety. I'm more clinging on to you rather than being in a relationship with you.
Right.
And that is possibly what it would look like. And then I see that, like you had talked about last time, I may leave this and go to another thing, but it will show up in exactly the same way, only the person looks different. And now we think that, oh, it's a different person, it's going to be different. But no, I'm the same person in that relationship with the same wounds.
Yeah.
Right. And then we blame the person rather than saying, hey, what is it in me that's causing me so much of pain? Right. The moment we start asking that question, the journey of healing that wound has begun. Because up until then, we're saying this person did this, and that boyfriend did that, and this partner did this, and then it's easy. But can I see a pattern here? I'm not really holding emotional, vulnerable, relationships that require me to be trusting of someone. So if my trust was broken first, how am I going to trust you? So I'm always going to probably ask for reassurance, all of that. And the guy's like, how many times am I going to tell you the same thing? Etc. And then we see those in the behaviors. And or the guy might say that to the girl, or again, partner to partner. It could be two men, two women. We're not sort of we're taking everybody into consideration. Is to begin that journey of asking, what is this pattern in my life? What is this pain? Why is it showing up for me? And I'm noticing that it's showing up and it's a recurring pain and a recurring behavior pattern. What can I do about it? Where is this coming from? And then seeking possibly help. And that's what usually brings people through the door, as a relationship dynamic, to really look at that wound. Whether it's a wound of the lower chakras, higher, or the heart. And then we work through each, and they're usually both, to a large, because I think if your lower chakra is not of safety and security is not meant, you're not really able to feel that you are loved and cared for, and you're not able to feel the essence of that, because you will shut it down to feel safe,
Yeah,
right?
if you have a lion entering through the door, you don't care about the hug, right?
Exactly. And so that's it. So then we start healing the wounds of
It is safe. We don't want to hug the lion, right? That
absolute,
would not be the right appropriate response, and very soon your genetical code would not go down the line if you do that, right?
absolutely, right? And so then, the secondary pain is that I don't even start like myself. I don't love myself. I don't respect myself. I have disconnected from my emotions, my needs, my body, and I'm only living in the mind. And that is what the place that we are in, and that's what trauma does. And so I'm always ready to be on the move. And one of the things that we see today is people can't relax. We're not in a human system that knows how to relax or feels safe to relax. That relaxing or sleeping, insomnia, all of these are real concerns of our societies today. And that all comes from early childhood trauma and this lack of safety. And one of the things that I also learned is that what we lack becomes our love language. So if I lacked praise, then my love language becomes, words of affirmation. If I missed time, quality time with my parents, then that becomes my love language. And there's so much of, I'm saying this out loud because there's so many people who talk about love languages today. Oh, my love language is acts of service. Why is it that? Because it's all of it, but one is stronger than the other because that's what I missed. And so I'm hoping that by giving it to somebody else, they will give it back to me.
Right.
And healing the wounds is is also the ability to give it back to yourself.
Yeah,
To
true
give,
love is unconditional. It's not like I'm gonna do this for you and then you're gonna do that for me. That's looking for an exchange, which is fine. You know, there can be a changes in the couple, but if it's love, you don't give it expecting something else in return.
yeah, but I mean, most of the humans, we haven't reached that point. It's still a very
Oh,
transaction.
yeah.
Right? We
Yeah,
haven't reached
of
the space
course.
where we can put down the conditions and everything is transactional in this world, right? I call it the economics of love now. Love has
Yeah.
just become an economy of you give me this, I give you this, you meet this need, I meet that need. The true essence of love has been lost, but that maybe we can do a whole different season on. But coming back to that, I think one of the most healing things that we can do is that everything that we've missed we start giving to ourselves, not in a selfish, self indulgent way, but in an understanding, compassionate, holding space way, so that we can meet our needs and show up whole in a relationship rather than the tug of war of you didn't do this for me, I didn't do this for you, and you spoke. It all is coming from wounding. If I'm coming whole, then it's just two whole individuals supporting each other in creating something wonderful, which isn't fraught by with um, you didn't give me what I wanted.
Mm, that's great. All right, that's really nice. I think it's a good place to be approaching the end of the episode. That feels quite complete. Let me go into the tips and tricks from yoga section for this. Um, the, before we before I give some little tip, we will do a special breath today. Let's just say, okay, the last two episodes we were talking about how trauma manifests in us. How does it occur? And the effects that it has on the body and the stress and the 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 wounds and the beliefs and the narratives and all that. We were exploring all this, and maybe by today's episode, somebody may be thinking, well, there's something I need to heal, and so I need to start uh, dealing with these basic needs of my baby, of my inner child. Yeah, so for us to explore healing is to embark on a journey through an unknown territory. We talked about this a little bit the other day. And because it's the unknown, we are afraid of the unknown. We are not going to be able to face the fear of the unknown if we're not feeling safe. So I think this is a good starting place. Feeling safe means my basic needs are covered as well. So can we check that the basic baby needs are also covered? How are we doing with my diet, with my sleep and the exercise and the comfort of my body? Do I have pain in my body? If so, can I deal with it somehow? So many people don't go to the doctor. They take they have a cat. They will bring to acupuncture. They will do homeopathy for the cat. They will give massage for the cat, but they themselves, they have some issue. They don't go to the doctor. So if you have an issue, what's the problem? No, can I find comfort in my body? Am I refilling my energy levels properly? So how am I charging myself up with energy? Am I doing it not just with food, but other ways? Yeah, and the same with the mind and entertainment and the heart as well. And so just to go back to the baby's needs and to check right now, me as an adult, how many of these needs are fully satisfied, at least satisfied. I'm not saying, overflowing with it, but, enough to satisfy that, so that if I feel safe, I can embark on a journey of discovering a new part of myself that I don't know about. And that's going to be scary. So let me at least feel that my basic needs are covered in that sense. So that's one thing. And taking it from here, I'm going to show a little breath that helps us feel that we are not lacking anything, that there's nothing lacking. Because sometimes we feel, well, I'm in a good position in my life, I'm earning money, I have food on my table, and I am, I am in a position where I could feel safe, and yet I don't. I could feel that I am, you know, supported by the universe and by myself. I have food on my table, and yet I'm feeling this lack and operating from a scarcity mentality. Okay, so if you feel like that, then this breath can help to feel that we are not lacking anything. So it's very simple. You cross the fingers and you put them on your lap. You cannot see it on the camera, those who are watching the video, but I'm putting my fingers crossed, interlocked, sorry, on my lap, relaxed. And I mentioned how the needs of the body, and particularly the in general, is associated to the first three chakras. That's more connected to these survival and basic needs. So we're gonna inhale through the mouth, and that is like sipping water through a straw, and that is gonna go down to the belly. Yeah, you were talking before about some people say, "Oh, my stomach." Yeah, I feel it in my stomach. It's more down into the belly more than the stomach, but that's the region where we feel the emptiness. And so we're going to feel that emptiness with prana, with energy. So even though the lungs are the ones who are going to receive the air, if you suck it like this, like a straw, it will go deeper and it will go into the stomach. So you inhale through this straw and you do one inhale per second, but you don't exhale, meaning that the air is going to come out somehow, maybe through the pores, who knows, maybe through the ears, but we don't care about the exhale. We don't worry about the exhale. We just care about inhaling. So in reality, what it becomes, I don't know if anybody can hear it properly, but it will be something like, and I'm not worrying about the exhale. I'm just inhaling, 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 inhaling. And the air brings prana. The air is charged with prana energy. So we are gonna a little bit overcharge the prana. So I don't recommend this to do it every day, anyone on all the time. I'm just saying when you feel that you are lacking and you're feeling maybe exhausted energetically, or you're just feeling this void within, then do this no more than 5 minutes. It's important, and we don't want to get too much into the clouds. But it's going to refill my battery, my energy, and feel that I'm, because if we don't have energy, how are we going to face the challenges of life and the work and the world outside of us? So at least energetically, and this sense that I have a void within, is going to feel that it's fulfilled. And so with that fullness, I can feel, okay, I don't lack anything. Okay, I can adventure into the unknown, right? So maximum 5 minutes, sips of air, like if it was water through a straw with the lips in a circle, and one per second, and don't worry about the exhale. And don't meditate, don't do any weird thing. You can keep your eyes open. You don't even have to meditate or anything. Just sipping energy and feeling the abundance within, and feeling I don't like anything, I don't lack anything, just like that sense. You can even do it just 3 minutes, that would be already enough, but maximum 5, don't do it more than 5, and see how it feels and let us know.
Thank you so much. I want to try that too, Ardasji, and give you my feedback in the next session. So do let us know how that worked for you, this breath. And up until then, we will see you next Friday, same time. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you, everyone. Sadhana.
Satnam.
Yeah.